Happy Friday and welcome to Green Dot Daily. I'm Maria Marino, live every weekday at 3 Eastern on the Action app and YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed to our channel. And in case you missed it yesterday, our crew of Charlie DiSturco, Jim Turvey, and Michael Leboff combined to go 5-0 on picks given out on the show. Okay. Coming up today, Sean Kerner gives his favorite player props. Tim Kalinowski has NHL picks plus NASCAR with Nick Giffen. But first, our NBA Finals matchup is set. Timberwolves are out. Mavericks are in. And they have a tall task ahead against the Celtics. Since 1988, teams listed at minus 200 or higher going into the finals are 22-3, including 21-2 when they have home court advantage. The only three losses were the 2004 Lakers, who were minus 700, by the way, against the Pistons, the 2016 Warriors against the Cavs, and the 2019 Warriors against the Raptors. Meanwhile, the Mavericks were plus 2,500 to win the title heading into this season. They're now the 8th team in the last 40 years to reach the finals at 25-1 preseason odds or longer. Of those teams, only the 2015 Warriors managed to win it all. Mavs are now plus 180 to win their first championship since 2011. As we bring in Sean Little and Chris Raybon, and we'll get your series predictions. But first, let's get into some storylines with a game of bet or pass. So I'll give a statement. You tell me whether you agree or disagree, aka bet or pass. First up, Jayson Tatum needs finals MVP more than the actual series win. Raybon, bet or pass?
Gotta go pass on this one. I mean, Jayson Tatum needs a championship. I don't really think he needs a finals MVP because he's kind of settled in as, like, he's not a true superstar the way I think like a Luka Doncic is. I feel like he's kind of more of a star, and it's more about the Jays, I feel like, in Boston. Now, you saw Jaylen Brown come alive in that Pacers series, bailed them out of a game. I think it was that game one, and was the best player, won that Larry Bird trophy. So I think Boston would be just fine if Brown earns that contract that he's going to get paid, and Jayson Tatum and him are just, 1A, 1B, two very, very good players. But I don't think we're at a point where Jayson Tatum needs to win a finals MVP to cement his legacy or anything like that. Like, this guy we know what he is. We know what this team is. They just need a ring. And Jayson Tatum needs that ring. So I'm going to pass on that one.
I agree, but Sean, I don't know about you. I feel like I heard a subtle tinge of Tatum slander in there. Is this a better pass for you?
Oh, this is a bet for me all day long. He needs to win the title, and he needs to be the most impactful guy on the floor, and that would mean the finals MVP trophy as well. Let's be clear. The reason, Raybon, he's not considered a superstar like Luka or Jokic is because too many other guys make a greater impact on a game too often than he does. We talk Derek White, we talk Jaylen Brown. Cool, it could be one of those situations where he has the luxury to be unselfish and doesn't have to be that number one guy. But far too often am I looking at Tatum, and he's like the third most impactful guy on the floor for the Boston Celtics. So for his legacy and how we want to view him, because he wants to be viewed as a superstar, he wants to be in that real MVP conversation. For that to happen, you have to come into the finals, be the most impactful guy, and win the title. That would then, I guess, I got a little bit of Jayson Tatum naysayer in me as well. That would calm guys like myself down quite a bit if he comes into the finals and hangs 28, 11, and 6 and straps up on D, wins the championship, wins the finals MVP. Then it's like, what more can I say? I just saw him put together one of the best regular seasons we've ever seen in team ball and individually, and then he caps it with an unbelievable finals performance. That's when all the chatter stops, and Jayson Tatum is officially that top 5 guy that everybody thinks he is.
I disagree so much, just because, like, if you look at this Celtic team, the reason they're even here is because you got Kristaps Porzingis. You traded for Drew Holiday. Derek White has broken out. Like, this is just a amazingly constructed roster by Brad Stevens. And I feel like it's not like Tatum's at the like he's carrying this team. Like this is
who's one of the most. Who's
oh,
one
no,
A?
Tatum is 1A, but I'm saying that
so
he
you
needs a title, not an MVP, because he's not. This team is one of the most balanced rosters in league history, one of the best, most balanced rosters in league history. If you look at that,
so Raybon, you won't have questions about Tatum if he comes into the finals, they win the title, and Jaylen Brown and Derek White were way more impactful than Jayson Tatum was.
No, because I know who Jayson Tatum is. He's been in the league 7 years. I'm not waiting for him to take this next step. He is where he is. He's firmly planted in the hall of very good for me.
Okay,
anyway.
I'll just say this: we're not even close to done on this topic yet, because we're gonna get into Finals MVP bets in a second. Priority number one is obviously winning a championship, but I'm curious: will Jaylen Brown make it undeniable the way it was in the ECF? And like that's what Tatum would need to do to win that award. To be continued on that. Let's continue Better Pass real quick. We got some other storylines here. Luka Doncic becomes the best player in the sport with this title win. Bet or pass, Raybon?
Oh, that's an easy bet. I mean, Luka's almost there anyway. He might be there anyway. And even if the Mavericks lose, if Luka averages a triple-double or something ridiculous, this is his first trip to the finals. This is really his coming out party, taking the Mavs from a number 5 seed. And there were many times in the playoffs where Kyrie, as Sean, you've talked about, was kind of quiet offensively and Luka was carrying. So he's right there. He might have that title either way. I mean, some of the shots he's hitting are just absolutely ridiculous. He can't do it alone, but that's an easy bet for me.
Sean?
Yeah, I agree. An easy bet. He's already cemented as a top 3 player in the NBA right now. If he continues the run that he's been on and wins the title and makes a huge impact like I expect him to, and scores 30 plus a night, almost pushing that triple-double level, easy call that he'd be the best player in the world. The title says all you need to know. If he wins a ring and he brings all those guys with him, we got rookies getting big minutes, making big impacts. Remember, we talk about the trade for PJ Washington and Gafford like it was a foregone conclusion it was going to work. They've only played, 40 games together? Maybe? I don't even know the exact number, but they haven't played very much ball, and it has worked seamlessly because of number 77, Luka Doncic. So, yes, if he wins the title, surefire bet that he's the best player on the planet.
Sean, I was with you on Action Island. I was hating on Luka a little bit. He's a bad man. I mean, he's like yelling at the crowd, like, who's crying now? He loves it. Bad man. Finally, Kyrie Irving goes full villain mode, drops 30 at least once in Boston. Raybon, bet or pass?
I'm going to go bet just because unless Dallas gets swept, they should have at least three games in Boston. So he just has to do it in one out of those 3. Maybe he gets to 4, but they only got 2 guys that can score, really. Like, this is the NBA Finals. You're not messing around and, like PJ Washington's not running ISOs or anything. It's going to be Luka and it's going to be Kyrie. So, yeah, I think he wants a little bit of revenge, and I think he gets there in Boston. He would love nothing better, I don't think.
Sean, you agree?
Yeah, this is a bet. If Andrew Nembhard's scoring 32, Kyrie Irving is getting 30 at some point against the Boston Celtics. And Raybon laid it out perfectly. There's 2 guys that are going to be centric to putting the ball in the hole. It's Luka and it's Kyrie. And to be clear, coming into the game, we were bullish on Action Island about Kyrie having to deal with Jaden McDaniels and how he was going to work through that. He absolutely cooked them last night. He took 1 game to adjust. Him and Luka both shot it poorly. They bounced back in the very next game on the road and absolutely put on an offensive show. So, yeah, that's a bet for me. Kyrie can go for 30 seemingly whenever he gets together. Drew Holiday may have something to say about it. We'll see. But I think there's going to be so much volume for Kyrie that he should be able to get 30.
Too skilled, too talented. And you know what? Even if they weren't playing Boston, I would bet on Kyrie to have a 30 piece on the road. Like, it's not all that crazy for me to imagine. Now, let's talk picks here. As mentioned, Boston is the favorite to win the series. Dallas looking pretty dangerous, though. Raybon, who's your pick to win the title?
I'm with Boston here, and I really like Dallas for this whole postseason run. I thought they were the better team over Minnesota just because of how the matchups kind of broke down. But I think this is a really tough matchup for Dallas. It's, first of all, you're going from a situation in Minnesota where the backcourt was, 37-year-old Mike Conley and undersized McDaniel to now the best defensive backcourt in the NBA with Derek White and Drew Holiday. And then on the other side, the Celtics, they have that balanced roster. Everybody can hit the three. That's going to be tough when you're talking about guys like Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford now, because remember, going up against Gobert, it's a little different, because he's going to stay in the paint. Now there's some trade-offs here that I think Dallas has to make. And it's just, you don't have a floor stretcher at that 5 position unless you play Kleber. You don't want to play him too many minutes. You can leave Derek Jones alone if you're Boston, but there's really no one you could do that on Boston if you're Dallas on defense. So I think it's going to wear out Luka, wear out Kyrie. And I just think this Boston team matches up really well. This is their second finals appearance. Remember how just out of sorts they looked in that first one against Golden State, all these turnovers and self-inflicted errors. Now you got Mazzulla with another year under his belt. Jayson Tatum, Brown is hungry. And this is Dallas's first. I think this is where some of the warts for Dallas start to show with those 3 non-scorers in the starting lineup. So I'm going with Boston at minus 210. And you already laid it out, Maria. The numbers, the trends for favorites, anything minus 190 or more, really, they almost never lose in the NBA Finals. So you got some trends to back it up as well. But I just think this is a great matchup for Boston, unlike Dallas's other 3 opponents.
Yeah, I do wonder about Kristaps Porzingis because you brought it up earlier, Raybon. Like the addition of him, I think that's what truly put Boston in this conversation as you can win a title now. He hasn't played since April 29th. This long layoff certainly helps. Maybe they're fine even if he's not 100%. I don't know. I'm trying to envision. I almost kind of forget what it looks like with him there. Do you think we see him game 1, Raybon, just real quick, and early thoughts on game 1?
I do think, there were rumors that he was going to come back near the end of that Pacer series if it extended, but they didn't need to. But it looks like, over 7 feet of rim protection. Like he doesn't even have to do much offensively. Like just stand there and make it tough for Luka and Kyrie, because the other guys are just going to be in the corners just chilling. But with Luka and Kyrie, they're going to get in the paint. Minnesota was even though Minnesota got dusted in 5 games, 4 of those games were very competitive, very close. And I think, a guy like Gobert in the middle did help, but Luka and Kyrie are going to make some crazy shots. But I think Kristaps' rim protection is really important. And then his floor stretching at the 5 position as well. I think those are 2 key things, but I do think we'll see him in this series in game 1.
All right. Coming to you now, Sean. How do you see this series playing out and how do you bet accordingly?
Yeah, I lean Boston Celtics as well here. I have no official play on the series, and I got to dig in and get some more info. We got a little bit of time here, but I agree with a lot of what Raybon said. The one thing you guys both laid out, last person to win the title when their opponent was either minus 190 or greater was Kawhi Leonard, AKA, I call Kawhi Leonard the boogeyman. He has a lot of boogeyman tendencies, and Luka Doncic has a little bit of that boogeyman in him. He can get really spooky and start bullying guys. You wouldn't think he would be able to bully and kind of get in some people's heads. I think that's kind of what happened yesterday in Minnesota. So I'm going to take this to go over 5.5 games, minus 150. Look, the Boston Celtics tried to give away multiple games to the Pacers, and Indiana just wouldn't allow it. They just kept blowing the games coming down the stretch. Dallas has the closers, as we know, in Luka and Kyrie, to not do that. They will close out those games. They will punctuate those and win those and extend the series. One thing to keep an eye on here is the pace. Dallas's pace this playoffs is interesting. It's at 9. It was 94.2 against the Wolves. The Pacers' pace gave Boston a little issue, but it was only at 96. So we're at like 1.8 percentage points, or 1.8 possessions, I should say, more. Can the Mavs pick it up a little bit and start doing those advanced passes that we know Luka likes to do anyway? Would that give Boston a couple more issues than maybe we're giving them credit for? We will find out. But if Dallas can play a little quicker, similarly to the Indiana Pacers, that could cause them some trouble. And lastly, Dallas has been really good on the road. 7-2 this playoffs away from Dallas. So they can steal one. They have the offensive firepower and the boogeyman in Luka to do so. I like this to go 6 or 7 games, regardless of who wins.
I couldn't agree more. I don't think Boston has seen or faced an animal quite like this yet this postseason and in quite a while, with a lot of the teams that they face missing their best players. And now you run up against Luka and Kyrie. So I could absolutely see this. All right, one more for you guys. I can only imagine it's going to get heated, but MVP finals market, pretty intriguing. And Raybon, you do have a bet at this time to take home the award.
Yeah, I think the clear play on the board is Jaylen Brown at plus 600 because Jayson Tatum's at minus 125. Now, I know Boston's favorite, but Boston isn't, even though I like Boston, I don't think Boston's a prohibitive enough favorite for their 1A player to be better than 50-50. And if you look at Tatum and Brown in the playoffs, Brown averaged one fewer point than Tatum, 26-25. Brown was more efficient from the field, more efficient from three. So I think it's more like, maybe 2-1 at best in favor of Tatum if Boston wins. Because remember, Jaylen Brown did win that Larry Bird trophy. So that's one of the 3 series that we know if this, if it was repeating, Jaylen Brown would win the MVP. So I think the odds are out of whack. Obviously, Luka's always in play, but I think Jaylen Brown, his number really sticks out because I think Tatum is too high and Brown is too low. So, and Brown, another thing I think that'll help him is he's almost certainly going to be the main defender on Luka Doncic. And remember how Andre Iguodala won that MVP because, he was on LeBron for a bunch of that series. If you're not even going to stop Luka, but if you just win the series and he averages 28 and 9-9 or something, that's still a win. And I think Jaylen Brown's going to get credit for that too. Only 11 points on 57 possessions did Doncic score against Brown in a regular season. So I think there's a lot working in Jaylen Brown's favor. I just think the odds are too long. Tatum should be the favorite, but not by as much as he is.
Right. And Sean, whether it's fair or not, this narrative, this doubt around Tatum, it's like we're living proof of it right now. It's just in every media segment that we're seeing. So I just don't see how the gap, to Raybon's point, would be that great.
Yeah, well, I think part of it is people want him to be the guy. Kind of like Raybon said. He said, look, for me, he's in that solidified section of very, very good hooper. A lot of the country and the media want him to be the guy. So if he puts up any sort of numbers and they get a W, that's why you're seeing it at minus 125. People want to give him this MVP if they win it, just coming off the full season. It's almost like a full season more. A lot of narratives running in that finals MVP. And like a big question mark around Curry. When KD got those 2, Curry had to get that last one. And that was part of the narrative going into that, and he did end up getting it done. So yeah, I agree with a lot of what Raybon said. I think the price is out of whack because also if he quote unquote straps up Luka a little bit, where that 29-9-9 is an inefficient 29-9-9, he's shooting 40%, 38% from the floor. That's going to be a really good look for Jaylen Brown, and he could put up similar numbers to Jayson Tatum. So yeah, the number I do agree with Raybon is out of whack, but he already has. How about this? Tatum already has a few votes. Brown's going to have to flip those votes. People want to give it to Jaylen Brown. So Jayson Tatum. So I agree the price is wrong, but a lot of things moving in Tatum's favor if he has a good series.
I'm so intrigued, but we got plenty of time to dissect this every which way over the next week or so. That being said, Sean Little, Chris Raybon, I'll let you guys go. Thanks so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Maria.
To baseball now, and Patrick Corbin and the Nationals are facing Tanner Bybee and the Guardians tonight. Here's how they stack up. Corbin, a 6.12 ERA. Bybee is under 4. He's also striking out 4 more batters per 9 innings. Corbin's strikeout prop is over under 3.5. That number is 6.5 for Bybee. Cleveland, the heavy favorite here at -230. And our director of predictive analytics, Sean Kerner, is with us now to give all of the strikeout props. And you're actually looking at both pitchers in this particular game. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so I'm going with the K prop for each pitcher in this game. And the first is Patrick Corbin of the Nationals, under 3.5 strikeouts at -111. Looks like the best odds right now. He has a career low strikeout rate this season of 13%, and all of the underlying data supports it, as he has a career low whiff rate. He also has a career low first strike rate, so he's been getting behind in the count more as well, and also struggling to get hitters a whiff. Now he faces a team that ranks bottom 5 in strikeout rate in the Guardians, so this is just a really tough matchup for him. My sim shows him with about a 63% chance he stays under 3.5. So I love the value we're getting here at -111.
And I mean, you're not only fading Corbin here a little bit, you're also taking the under on Bybee.
Yeah, I'm going with the under on Tanner Bybee's strikeout prop at 6.5. It's at -145. I'll get to why I don't mind the juice, but love the value we're getting here. Obviously, he's way more capable of striking out a ton of hitters as opposed to Patrick Corbin. However, this also is a tougher matchup for him as well. The Nationals will probably have around 6 left-handed hitters in today's lineup, and Bybee's K percentage is around 4% lower against left-handed batters. So left-handed having lineup, say that 10 times fast, will lower his expected K rate by quite a bit. And he's gotten the most strikeouts from his slider this year. 25 of his strikeouts have come from that pitch. And the Nationals have the 3rd lowest put away rate against sliders. So that's going to just make it even tougher for him to put away these hitters. Now, Joey Gallo is the big problem. He's hitting 8th. I have him like coin flip to strike out every time he's up there. However, the fact that he is hitting 8th, it's unlikely, or I should say less likely, that Bybee will get to face him a 3rd time. So that's kind of a sneaky way on how my sim is kind of showing some value on this under, is he might only get to face the human K machine that is Joey Gallo 2 times. So I'm projecting him closer to -230 to finish under 6.5 strikeouts. Some books are offering 5.5. I am showing some slight value there. I have that around -125 for the under. Well, some books have that plus money, but just when it comes to strikeout props, I prefer having the extra strikeout. So I'm leaning, going with the 6.5 as opposed to the 5.5 here.
Yeah, and I think that's important to note because your model is so specific. And so with this particular market, when you get that specific number, it makes a difference, right?
Yes. Yeah. The other day with Cole Reagans, I think that was very clear. I gave him out at 7.5. Some books had 6.5. I said how valuable it is to have that extra strikeout, and he finished with 7. So, there's like an 18% chance Bybee gets exactly 6 strikeouts. So we want to be taking the one that will win in that situation. That's why I don't mind paying the extra juice. Again, it's -145. I have the fair odds closer to -230. It just makes the sweat that much easier knowing that we have an extra strikeout, just in case he does face the human strikeout machine that is Joey Gallo that 3rd time. It's always nice to have that extra strikeout in our back pocket.
For sure. It's significant. And you actually have one other strikeout prop for us as well.
Yeah, so I'm going with Brian Wu of the Mariners, under 5.5 strikeouts. It's at -102 right now against the Angels. And Wu is a pitcher who has a ton of strikeout upside. We saw that last season. But this year he's been slowed down by his inflammation in his right elbow. It's been kind of lingering. They've been kind of babying him this year. So he hasn't thrown more than 80+ pitches in a game this year. Another secret thing that I think is lowering his strikeout rate this year is he's not throwing his slider sweeper combo as much. Again, probably due to his elbow injury. Those are pitches that really put some strain on your elbow. So those are his 2 top strikeout pitches, and he's throwing them at half the rate he was last year. So of course the strikeout rate is going to be lower this year. And last game, it was his lowest rate throwing that combo all season at just 7%. And he was throwing his sinker at the highest rate. So he's doing a lot of things to pitch to contact right now, not throwing his top 2 strikeout pitches and getting pulled from the game earlier than we're used to seeing. So all those factors show, a ton of value on the under 5.5, but also just the fact that he is going to lean on his 4-seamer, sinker, and changeup against the Angels poses a problem because the Angels have actually been very good at making contact with those 3 pitches. So I have him around a -170 fair odds for under 5.5. So love the value we're getting here at -102.
Well, I, as per usual, love all of the context, all the details, all the numbers, everything you could ask for. But we're not even done because we got a little bonus pick here in the WNBA. One game in particular that caught your eye, Dallas Wings in Connecticut taking on the Sun, who are unbeaten right now at 6-0.
Yeah, so I'm going with the over 160 in this game. You can get that at FanDuel right now, but this is a fascinating matchup because we have the fastest paced team in the league in the Wings facing the slowest paced team in the league in the Sun. And, both teams are very good offensively. They both rank top 4 in offensive rating right now. And both schematically, both of these teams are fairly similar. Both teams lead the league. They're top 2 in the league, I should say, in shot attempts inside 5 feet, while also allowing the top 4 field goals made inside 5 feet on the season. So this is a game I think we're going to see a ton of high percentage shots inside, and both teams getting to the line at a high rate as well. So I was projecting this closer to 165, which is where it opened, but I think everybody's just pounding the under here because of last game. The Mercury Sun, the game totaled 117 points. It was a brick fest, but I think that was mostly on the Mercury. They just had a rough shooting night. They were shorthanded. I think they only had 8 active players, so that game was just awful. But I think the Wings could be much better offensively here against the Sun. Sevgi Uzun and Maddie Seagrass have been playing really well the past couple of games. So I think those two specifically, on the upswing here is going to be one of the reasons why this game goes over.
Yeah, I have to say I couldn't stomach much of that game on Tuesday, the Mercury at the Sun. I'm pretty sure the Mercury put up like 47 points. So yeah, it was definitely all on their side of the things, the low scoring. But Sean Kerner, we always appreciate you. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Over to NHL, we have a game 5 on deck tonight at 8:30 Eastern. The Oilers at Dallas, and the series tied at 2 games apiece. Here's a market report courtesy of BetMGM showing 58% of money is on Dallas, -130, while 64% of money is on the under of 6. With that, we say hello to our hockey expert, Tim Kalinowski. All right, game 5, Oilers at Dallas. Series is tied. Who you got?
I'm going Edmonton, Maria. I like this number a lot for them when you consider the fact that Chris Tanev, one of Dallas's stud defensemen, sounds like he's going to be a game-time decision. He left game 4 after blocking a shot and was seen in a walking boot at the airport afterwards. This is like NBA stuff. When you talk about, Twitter gossip and whatnot, everyone trying to speculate. Regardless, I know that Tanev's is one tough customer, and with the area he took that shot block, it's kind of like this is either a bone bruise or a full-on broken ankle. That's kind of the way it goes. This guy would try and play if you amputated his leg. So here's the thing. Even if he does play, that spells trouble for Dallas, because I imagine he's going to be quite hobbled. They're going to make his life difficult. And to me, the biggest concern when you're betting Edmonton has been their goalie, Stuart Skinner, who's been pretty up and down in terms of this playoffs. But I think the great equalizer is Tanev on, being questionable, and even if he plays, a bit hobbled. So, net, I get a team plus money here that has showed that they can control the play for large parts of this series. Obviously, the deep scoring threats or high-powered scoring threats. So, yeah, I think regardless of Tanev plays, I'm looking at Edmonton at the plus money here. I'm having a hard time passing that up.
Well, I appreciate how you correlate everything to the world of the NBA for me. But per NHL.com, when a best-of-7 conference finals series is tied at 2-2, the winner of Game 5 has won 77% of the time. So they're 50-15. I think what you're saying is that bodes well for Edmonton down the road here. But when you look at the East final, of course, the Panthers won game 5. So that would mean maybe the Panthers are more likely to win this series. But before we get there, we have game 6 tonight. Who do you like there?
Yeah,
I mean, Saturday.
I was gonna let it go, Maria. You're fine. It's Friday. Everything past Friday is the same day. No problem at all. Yeah, in terms of Saturday, I would say it's funny. I was laughing that, there's the bet, and then there's like what you like to play if you're just like, a silly gambler. Because to me, the bet in this game is the Rangers at plus 140, plus 145. The value there in terms of, we just talk, visiting teams last 2 playoffs, they're 90 and 75. You'd be up over $2,000 if you're a $100 better, just blindly betting visitors the last 2 playoffs. So number one, visitors have shown value in the last 2 years. But number two, yeah, you got this Rangers team with their back against the wall. You get a great goalie in Igor Shesterkin, and this is pretty much the same price it was the last time these 2 teams played in Florida, and that game went into overtime. And I would feel good about a plus 140 bet that's going into overtime. So if I had to pick a side, it's the Rangers here, and I will be betting it for about a half unit, but we'll get to it in a second, Maria. I actually feel a little stronger about the under.
Okay, hold on a second with regard to the total, because you did bet the Rangers money line, or at least you picked that on Green Dot Daily back on Tuesday. Ended up kind of flip-flopping a little bit with Panthers, and I hear what you're saying. It's kind of like what you see happening versus like what is the smart bet, or what you want to happen.
Correct. I am brainwashed by Michael Leboff. And he obviously hates the Rangers as an Islanders fan. I have futures on Florida to win the Stanley Cup. And so we've been very pro Florida. And when I came on the show for game 4, like I look at it, I'm like, when you're sitting with your buddies, right? You're sitting there and you're like, okay, what's the bet? And then what are we betting? It's like, well, the Rangers I felt were the smart side. But if you wanted to just say to yourself, I think Florida is better and I'm going to lay the juice no matter what, they're going to tie this series in game 4. Like, I have no problem with you doing that either. My point is, I just feel the smarter thing to do. Like, if you were just like, looking for units, value, increase, ROI, was the Rangers. And I feel the same way again about this game, as much as I've invested in Florida. And again, I've been indoctrinated by one Michael Leboff.
Okay, well, thank you for clarifying. And to be fair, we've had multiple games in this series go to overtime. So like, totally get it. Let's circle back to the total. You like the under as well in this game.
Yeah, I like the under 5.5. Look, game 6s and 7s in this postseason, the under is 8-1-1. So we see this when you get into later in the series, things tighten up, and they've already been really tight in this series. Not a lot of room out there. You get Shesterkin again. That feels like a free space and bingo, that he's going to hold up his end of the deal, or at least feel confident that he's going to do so. And then just the way that Florida likes to play, they really lock it down. They make it incredibly difficult through the neutral zone. Both teams, their special team, or in terms of penalty killing, has been good. And I'll say this one more thing on top of that. If you want a little sprinkle, this is the Michael Leboff special here. Speaking of the guy, giving him way too much airtime, but first period unders in game 6s and 7s in this playoffs, the under is 9-1. And we've also had 7 scoreless first periods of that span. So I also like, if you want to play the first period under 1.5, and then a little sprinkle on scoreless as well, you can usually get that at around a little over plus 300. So yeah, this is Saturday. There's one game a night at this point, Maria. So I like to spread it around, have a little fun. It's the weekend. Come on.
No, I appreciate that. Getting in that weekend mode. Before I let you go, we gave out the stat about, game 5 typically goes on to win the series, bodes well for the Panthers here, but is there life to the Rangers, coming back? And if so, how do you attack that?
Yeah, I certainly think there's some life, but the way I would go about it would not be betting them, live to win the series right now. I would be betting it, rolling it over game by game. Obviously, they have to win 2 in a row here, but yeah, I would feel way better if you were interested in doing that about just betting Shesterkin to win the Conn Smythe at 12-1. Obviously that would mean that they come back in the series and then you get them in the Stanley Cup final. There isn't a guy close on the Rangers that if they win it is winning the Conn Smythe. It would have to take a parlay of consecutive hat tricks from a forward for this thing to happen. So if you wanted to do that as well, they get the Stanley Cup final, just broadly bet Kreider 3+ goals every game. It would take a lot to dethrone Shesterkin from that if the Rangers are in the mix. So if you really need that blue shirt love, it's Shesterkin to win the Conn Smythe right now.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think I'd be running to bet one of the Rangers players suddenly getting like extremely hot offensively. But Tim Kalinowski, thanks so much for the insight. Enjoy the weekend.
Maria, enjoy the Friday. Thank you very much.
And by the way, not only do we have hockey on Saturday, we also have UFC 302. Our experts Billy Ward and Sean Zerillo gave their best bets via the Action Network podcast. Here's a sneak peek from Billy.
Makhachev, the vast majority of his takedowns comes from clinch, trips, drag down, stuff like that. With Poirier's footwork, if he fights a smart game plan, he's got a little bit of height and reach here. He can stay out of those clinch situations, in theory at least, keep this one standing. And then the other factor for me is the gloves. People are going to talk a lot about these new gloves at UFC 302. There's about 1/3 less padding than there was before, depending on what weight class and what size glove you have. That obviously gives an advantage to the more powerful striker, which is Poirier. The thing I don't think people are talking quite enough about is that a lot of the grappler type guys have complained that it's harder to open their hands, get grips and stuff like that. If you're someone like Khabib who shoots and wraps up the legs with your whole arms, I'm not really worried about that. If you're looking for all kinds of inside trips and clinch work, you kind of need to be able to get those grips, work that wrist control. That's a huge part of Makhachev's game. So that's one thing. He said something complaining about the gloves this week in one of the interviews. He was not a fan of it. I think that's kind of an underrated aspect here, not just the boost to knockouts, the boost to striking power for those guys, but also making it harder to grapple. With all that said, it's a long shot for a reason. Don't go putting multiple units on this or whatever. I took half a unit at plus 475 on Poirier. You can still get him around plus 450 somewhere in that region. I'd take it. Not a big bet, and also maybe just a little bit betting with my heart rather than my head.
Back here with our predictive analyst, Nick Giffen. So the NASCAR Cup Series continues this weekend at Worldwide Technology Raceway for the Enjoy Illinois 300. I'm a fan of the name. And you have some best bets for us.
Yeah, that's right. So in this race, right, we got a 1.25 mile track here at Gateway. It's relatively flatly banked, 9 and 11 degrees in the corners. So we'll be using shorter, flatter tracks mostly to use as comparable tracks to Gateway here. And that's important for our first pick here. I'm going to take Alex Bowman at plus 270 to finish ahead of Ty Gibbs. Now, Gibbs definitely should be favored in this matchup, but not this heavily. Actually, if you wanted to bet the Gibbs side is minus 400. That's pretty crazy. But on Bowman's side at plus 270, he actually leads Ty Gibbs overall this year in top 10 finishes by a count of 9 to 8. So, on average, he's been pretty consistent. So has Ty Gibbs, and they've been relatively similar. Bowman also leads Ty Gibbs in the shorter flat tracks in terms of average running position. Bowman's been at like 12.8, and Ty Gibbs has been right around 13.1, 13.2. So again, pretty much the same. I mean, these two guys have been running relatively equal overall so far this year at shorter, flatter tracks. Also, if we just look at their finishes on the 3 shorter, flatter tracks this year, Ty Gibbs technically leads the head-to-head 2-1. However, it was one kind of comfortable win for Gibbs in the head-to-head matchup, one kind of comfortable win for Bowman in the head-to-head matchup. And then in the third head-to-head matchup, Ty Gibbs finished 1 spot ahead of Alex Bowman. I mean, that's basically a coin flip right there. So these two have been essentially equal at the shorter flat tracks. Now, if we want to throw in the All-Star race and or, the All-Star Open or the preseason exhibition race, at the Clash, we definitely should be favoring Ty Gibbs. And my model does favor Ty Gibbs. However, not this heavily. So my model has Alex Bowman around plus 140, plus 150 as fair odds. So plus 270, that's crazy. So I love this bet. You should absolutely be betting Alex Bowman over Ty Gibbs at this number.
Yeah, good on you just for identifying a bigger gap than there should be there in the odds. And you also have a team pick too.
Yeah, so on Running Hot this week with Stevie TPFL there, our victory lane pick, which is our combined pick where the two of us agree we like this bet, we gave Ryan Blaney 9-1 to win. Well, if you haven't bet Ryan Blaney yet, I do think there's another way you can get him involved here, and that's by betting his team, Team Penske, to win the race at plus 550. This way, not only do we get Ryan Blaney, but we get his teammate Joey Logano, and we get their teammate Austin Cindric as well. And if you were to, look across the industry, all the different sports books out there, you could get an implied probability by betting the very best odds on each at kind of a synthetic 17.6% implied odds. But that's hard to do, right? Because you have to have access to all the different books. You have to not be limited to all the different books. So that's pretty tough to do. So really, you're probably getting more of like an implied probability of like 18 to 20% to bet these three guys individually. However, taking this team bet at plus 550 means that's just 15.4% implied probability that we need one of these drivers to win the race. And I definitely have above that. We'll get to that. But the reason I like Team Penske here is I have something called my track quality metric, and I have it for every track and each driver at each track. So if we take each driver's individual baseline, like their average baseline, my track quality metric measures how far above or below they are at this specific track, Gateway this weekend, than their average track. So Team Penske ranks 2, 3, and 4 in this track quality metric, behind only number 1, Kyle Busch, in this metric. So I'm not saying they're going to be 2, 3, and 4 in terms of overall cars. I'm just saying in terms of their performance relative to their own baseline averages, they rank 2, 3, and 4. Now, if we look at Ryan Blaney, he's led 95 laps in the 2 races. Joey Logano won one of the 2 races we have run at Gateway in the Cup Series. And Austin Cindric, aside from super speedways, drafting tracks where everybody is kind of equal, in non-drafting tracks, this is the track where Austin Cindric has led the most number of laps. So all 3 cars here have shown really good performance, really good speed, and my model gives them almost an 18% chance, 17.9% chance of winning the race with one of these 3 drivers here, which is 2.5 percentage points clear of that 15.4% implied odds at plus 550.
Where else can you get the track quality metric? Nowhere.
Right.
But right here on GDD with Nick Giffen, unless you listen to the Running Hot podcast, which is having episodes out every Thursday, which you should. But Nick Giffen, thank you so much for the hot tips.
Anytime.
And remember, any picks we give out here on the show, you can easily reference by following green.daily in the Action app. We keep track so you don't have to. Another week in the books for green.daily. I'm Maria Marino. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you again Monday at 3 Eastern on the Action app and YouTube channel. Have a great weekend.